Would you like me to admit everybody, Rabbi, or you want to wait?
No, that's fine. I just wanted to get that started. So, and there we go. Yes, please. Welcome everybody to this memorial service for R.A. Greenberg. We're going to wait a few moments while people join. It can take extra time for people to find the email and to find the link or to realize they need a password and to reach out. So we'll give a little bit of extra time to let people gather. I'm not saying anything, which could be the reason why it's hard to hear. Which is actually a good note. Maybe I should chant something as we prepare. I can see the numbers going up, and I want to give everyone a chance to be here. As people slowly join and are admitted, I'm just going to sing a little bit to give us a chance to set the mood and come together. L'kol zeman, v'et l'cho chefetz tachat hashamayim, et laledet v'et lamut, et latat v'et lakornatua, et laharog v'et lirpo, et lifrot v'et livnot, et livkot v'et lischok, et sefod v'et rakot, et lahashlik avanim v'et knos avanim, et lachvok v'et lirchok, et lirchok mechabek. There is a time set for everything, a time for every experience under heaven, a time for being born and a time for dying, a time for planting and a time for uprooting the planted. There's a time for fighting and a time for healing, a time for tearing down and a time for building up, a time for weeping and a time for laughing, a time for wailing and a time for dancing, a time for throwing stones and a time for gathering stones, a time for embracing and a time for shunning embraces, a time for seeking and a time for losing, a time for keeping and a time for letting go, a time for ripping the garment of grief, and a time for sewing it up, the slow process of healing in grief, a time for silence and a time for speaking. We gather today to pay our respects to now the memory of R.A. Greenberg. My deepest condolences to R.A.'s beloved family. I'm not going to include everyone. I know I'll miss somebody, but I definitely want to express my condolences to Lori, to Ronit, to Gil, to Aaron and Dahlia, to Chassia and Ophira, and to all of Ari's beloved family, with whom his soul will forever be entwined, forever. This is a difficult service. Tanakh may tell us that there's a time for everything, but this certainly feels like a time far too soon. But it is not a time for silence. It's a time for speaking. And we keep memories alive in this world through speaking. And when we speak these stories, those values and that spirit become imprinted on ours. And we create blessing in this world by inviting that spirit in. Talmid Chacham imet mi mevi lanu timurato. Ki yesh la kesef motza, umakom lazahav yazoku. Barzel me'afar yukach ve'even yatzuch nuchusha, va'chochma me'ayin timatzeh. Ve'eze makom bina. Talmid Chacham imet mi mevi lanu timorato. From Job, there's no replacing a person of wisdom. There are mines for silver and places where gold is refined. Iron comes from the earth and copper from the rock. But where can that spirit, that wisdom, that knowledge be found? There's no replacing such a person. From whom do we learn how to be in this world? We learn from our family. As we say, following our recitation of the Shema as Jews and what we call the V'ahavta from Deuteronomy chapter 6, the Torah says there that we learn from the person who greets us as we wake up in the morning. And we learn from that person whose face is the one we see when we fall asleep. The person leading us in our going out to face the world, the one who goes out to face the world for us. The person when they're coming back home, from the home they make for us. From the person who's sitting in front of the car, or sitting beside me, or in the language of the Torah, the one with whom we go to and fro on the way. In our childhood, in our raising our children together, and in our adulthood. It's clear that Ari learned how to be from his family. From his mother, Rachel, the survivor of untold horrors from the Nazis murdering the Jews of Bessarabia. She survived in a work camp because of her skills as a seamstress. Who can measure the trauma of her experiences, of living with the deaths of her loved ones? And who can measure the strength of Rachel, her resolve, her strength? Did she teach Ari how to be stubborn, how to be strong? And Ari learned how to be from his father Menachem, whom Rachel met in British Mandate Palestine when she was in an internment camp. Menachem, originally from Romania, had been stationed with the British Jewish Brigade in Palestine, as it was called then. And they married. Menachem worked 2 jobs. Memories of Menachem I hear from the family are always working to make a life for his family. The message of hard work, and the family means everything, was imprinted on young Ari. Menachem's crowning achievement was to buy a house for his family, and that was not an ordinary house. It was a house on which he built a second level intended for his children, so they could all be together. And there, Ari's older sisters, Chassia and Ophira, had apartments where Ari spent so much time as they cared for him, as he learned how to be in this world from them as well. And they hold these memories today. When Ari went into the military, he worked on ordnances for tanks and was stationed in the Golan. The work he did in those mechanical matters in his military service led him to study at the Technion and then to go to work at the defense company Raphael. Finding out there at the company that advancement was connected to levels of education, Ari came to America to study more, albeit with very little money, if any. And so, like his father, he worked all kinds of jobs to get by. Worked as a truck driver, as a mechanical engineer, maybe jobs we don't even know about, as he studied for his engineering master's at Farley Dickinson University. And at one of his jobs in the Israeli consulate in New York City, he found himself set up with a beautiful, creative graduate student named Lori. Okay, so it started when Lori, eating lunch outside in beautiful New York City by one of those fountains with the walls of water, she was startled when a bold Israeli walked up and plopped a big bowl of borscht right next to her. He wanted her phone number, saying it's always good to have friends and to be with other Jews and socialize. Although it wasn't normally her way, she gave him his number, and it wasn't Ari. He set her up with Michael Cohen. He was a friend, but nothing more, but that led to something else, which is Michael Cohen then had a girlfriend, and they had a friend named Ari, and he needed a fourth to go out with them. And so he called Lori, and they set Lori up on a blind date with Ari. Ari arrived in his car with a Beatles haircut, cowboy boots, and in what was terribly out of fashion in America, if not in Israel, his shirt out. Lori was a little surprised, but what she remembers most of all, and I quote, is, "He was really cute." She wonders now what he must have thought, actually, because she greeted him with a limp from a dance injury. But she wasn't thinking about explaining that as her gaze fell upon him. There was no way he could have known as she got in the car. And what she remembers most from that time with him is that as he spoke, a bell kept going off in her head. As he spoke, yes, yes, yes. She had been told once that you'll know you've met the one when you hear a bell go off in your head. Lori had thought that's silly, and now she was hearing the bells. I asked Lori what she thought was going through Ari's head, and I used his English pronunciation of his name. Aryeh in Israel, Ari here in America, as he's known. I said, what do you think he was thinking? And she said, well, I know what he was thinking, because I asked him once, as we were looking at all of the art in my apartment, and you looked so interested in the art, what was going on in your head? And he said that he wasn't interested in the art, he was interested in her. Ari brought Lori to Eretz Yisrael. She remembers that all his family wanted to do was feed her, which is the way Jews show love. And she was trying to squeeze all of this food into her very slight frame, while Ari watched, amused, and barely ate himself. She said, Ari, you gotta eat some too. And he said, just keep going. In that feeling, the adventure in Israel of being in the land, she found herself showered with love and acceptance from Ari's Israeli family. Ari, as we'll find out later, was a bit mischievous and had his own kind of sense of humor, one that I'm told Gil has inherited. One of his behaviors was that he loved to show Lori his love by surprises. When he offered to paint her apartment, she accepted. That would be very useful and practical, only to return to find that he had painted in huge letters in her apartment, "Will you marry me?" She said, my reply was, "What the heck did you do to my wall?" Oh, and yes. And it was that love of loving to surprise Lori that followed her and him through their lives together. The kind of thing of saying, we're just going out to dinner, and then you find yourself at one of the last performances of Cats on Broadway with backstage passes to see how they pulled off the show, with all the dazzling mechanics that Ari loved. Fortunately, Ronit had strongly urged her mother to dress for more than a simple dinner. Often, the kids were a help in the conspiratorial nature of these surprises. Surprising her with Idan rifle tickets or a treasure hunt in the house to find a special gift, often with Ronit and Gil in on the surprise. Years of surprises and years of, what did you just do? And yes, followed. What a team Lori and Ari made. Ari always the practical one, and Lori the creative dreamer. One of Ari's loves was gardening. In another life, I'll be a farmer, he'd say. He loved even the weeding, which, let's be honest, who cares for? Lori tells me that the neighbors loved watching Lori and Ari in the garden together. They worked in the garden as they worked in life, as a team, as best friends, with affection and respect for each other. Everyone could see it. Everyone loved watching them together. He took care of the practical things, and like his father, worked so very hard, even to the very end of his life, despite all the reasons in the world to take sick leave or stop completely. During 52 cycles of chemo, he worked full time. He'd take 8-mile hikes as a chemo patient. He exercised until he couldn't move. He was strong. He didn't take anything for granted. And he was giving. No one would know because he wouldn't call attention to it. How he spent years mentoring students in robotics, long after Gil had graduated from the class. He was a silent hero. In this, Ari was true to his Hebrew name, which means lion. Strong, brave, giving, fiercely loyal, and protective of Lori, Ronit, and Gil. And while the road ahead will be difficult, Ari also gave his strength to them, giving Lori the strength to do things that she thought she couldn't do, a gift she will use now. She will do things she thought she couldn't do. And all of us today will help her. His strength will continue to grow in her and in Gil and in Ronit. They will need it, and they will have it. Ari's soul passed from this world as the Torah was turning from the story of the Israelites being confined in Egypt. That word for Egypt, Mitzrayim, literally means the constricted places that press you, oppress you, and put you in pain. And the Torah was turning from that story to the story of the Exodus from that, to those places, to the unknown road ahead. And Shemot says, Vayikach Moshe et atzmot Yosef imo, ki ashbea hishbia et bnei Yisrael lemor, hakod yivkod Elohim etchem, vahalitem et atzmotai mizeh itchem, which means, and Moshe took with him the bones of Yosef, took those bones into the Exodus, into the wilderness, into the journey ahead. For Yosef had exacted an oath from the children of Israel, saying, God will be sure to take notice of you, and then you shall carry up my bones from here with you. Too soon, we all know, Ari was taken from us. But in those moments, knowing the love of his family, Ari's soul left the constricted place of that cruel illness, and free from that, he is asking his family to take him with them on their journey ahead. While he may not in body realize his dream, the dream of being a grandpa watching Dahlia grow up, to sharing the fruits of upcoming retirement with his bat zug, his partner in all things, Lori, and to watch Gil Follow as he makes his own journey of life and family. Aryeh is calling out, Pakod yifkod Elohim etchem, v'alitem et atzmotai mizeh itchem. God is surely taking notice of you, and you will carry me from here with you on the journey forward. We continue this time of speaking with Ronit and her representing others as well.
Thank you, Rav Nadav. So I'll start with my own words. Dad was a lot of things to a lot of people, and I can't even begin to capture all of his essence in just a short set of remarks. But I will try my best to give just a small sense of who he was to me. There's a very popular quote that really resonates with me at this moment. It's attributed to Dr. Seuss, although it's unclear whether he actually said it or not. Regardless, the quote is, "Don't cry because it's over. Smile because it happened." And it sounds a lot like something Dad might have said. And while I'm certainly still crying for now, for me, this really encapsulates my feelings of gratefulness. Gratefulness for having the time that I did have with my dad, including the last 3 years, more time than they originally believed he would have with the type of aggressive cancer that he had. Gratefulness for the type of man my dad was and the profound impact he had on myself and everyone who knew him. Gratefulness for his mischievousness and his humor, his constant encouragement and belief that we could do and be more, his quiet generosity and warm spirit, and his unwavering love. Extreme gratitude that he was my dad, Abba. He meant everything. Talk to my brother and me in Hebrew, and he purposely wouldn't respond if we talked to him in English, because it was important to him that we be able to communicate with our family in Israel. I attended private school in our earlier years because I thought it was important to him, that it was important to have a strong foundation in the language, the culture, and the religion, so we could better understand and appreciate who we are and where we came from. He nurtured our love of Israel, made sure we had a strong connection to the land and its people. We visited as often as we were able, and my parents prioritized visits with family there, as well as those closer to home, rather than the kinds of vacations you might typically find on someone's wish list. And they always included Gil and me. Other than date nights with Mom, we always did things together. We played board games together. He especially loved dominoes and Rummikub. He'd take us to the park to play. We'd go sledding in the winters. He taught us how to ride our bikes and helped teach us how to drive. I remember him setting up orange traffic cones in an empty school parking lot to help guide me as I learned how to parallel park. And I also remember how he refused to take me out to drive on the highway until I'd done it with a driving instructor, because he said, "I don't have an emergency handbrake on my side of the car like they do." He took me to work with him on Take Your Child to Work Day and smiled good-naturedly at my early insistence that I don't want to be an engineer like Daddy, because I didn't fully understand his work and found it boring to sit around the office at that young age. He helped me with my math homework when I was little, and he believed strongly in the value of continual learning and growth. I think that's something that came from his mother, a Holocaust survivor who always told us how people could take everything from you except what was in your own mind, except for your education. And so Dad instilled that same value in us. He was our biggest supporter, coming to all our swim meets or to Gil's soccer and baseball games. He was always a good listener when I needed it, dispensing advice that I sometimes didn't value as much as I should have, because of course it turned out he was often right. He'd often use these analogies or metaphors to make a point or give a life lesson. Sometimes his examples would make perfect sense in Hebrew and then somehow sound strange when translated into English, and we'd laugh together about it. But we always knew what he was trying to say, and it was usually something really meaningful. He was a solid, constant strength to all of us, staying positive yet practical, even in difficult times. He's been a wonderful Saba to our daughter Dahlia, even in the very brief time he had with her. He read to her, talked to her in Hebrew, made funny or silly faces to make her laugh or smile, and just held her while she slept. Even in his last few weeks with us, his primary concern was for all of us, wanting to make things go smoothly, setting us up as best he could for the future, and apologizing for being what was in his mind a burden he never wanted to be. But for us, it wasn't a burden, but a way for us to return just a little bit more of the love and caring he had given us his whole life. And I will always be thankful that we were able to be with him for that. Dad, being the very practical guy he was, he used to say, and I'm paraphrasing here, "It is what it is. There's no sense looking back. We can only move forward and take what we've learned with us." So that's what I'm going to try to do. I'm still going to miss him, of course. There will be plenty of moments when I'll think if only Dad could have seen this, or when I wish I could ask for his good advice or even just give him a hug. But I'm going to try to move forward with all that he's taught us, given us, shared with us, all those wonderful memories, the values and skills that he instilled in us. And I hope to carry his spirit forward and make him proud. So now I'd actually like to read on behalf of my cousin, Galit, who has written some words in Hebrew. So I'll read the Hebrew first, and then I've also translated it into English for those who may not understand. So she says, and for those in Israel, I do apologize. My dad used to say, I've lost some of that Hebrew over time, and so he used to say, "Ani medabert כמו עולה חדשה," sometimes, like a new arrival. So if I mispronounce something, I apologize. So I'll do my best. גלית אומרת, דוד אריה היקר, אני לא מאמינה שאני כותבת לך מילים אחרונות בגרון חנוק. לא מאמינה שאתה כבר לא איתנו. סבלת הרבה ואמרת לי באחת השיחות שלנו שאין לך כוח לסבול את הכאב הזה. כאילו הסרטן בדק כמה כוח סבל יש לך. היית אופטימי לאורך כל הדרך, אבל לאלוהים תוכניות משלו. לעולם לא אשכח אותך ואת הביקורים בארץ, את הטיולים והחוויות יחד. אפילו יצא לי לבוא אליך לאמריקה פעמיים, ולהתארח אצלכם, ותמיד דאגת לי כמו לבת שלך. היו לנו הרבה שיחות, אהבתי את הראש שלך, תמיד עם חוש הומור, שאוהב להצחיק ולעשות צחוק מכל דבר, כמו ילד שלא התבגר. הביקור האחרון שלך בארץ היה אחרי ההשתלה של גאיה. אני שמחה שיצא לך להכיר אותה. יש לי עוד מלא דברים לומר, אבל המילים לא יוצאות. כל כך הרבה זיכרונות וחוויות, לא יצא לי להיפרד ממך. שמעתי שהקול שלך נחלש, ואתה כבר עייף. נוח על משכבך בשלום, דוד יקר. So in English, it reads, Dear Uncle Ari, I can't believe that I'm writing final words to you. I'm all choked up. I can't believe that you are already no longer with us. You suffered a lot, and you told me in one of our conversations that you didn't have the strength to endure this pain, as though the cancer had tested how much endurance you had. You were optimistic all the way through, but God has his own plans. I won't ever forget you and your visits home to Israel, the trips and the experiences we had together. It even worked out for me to come to visit you in America twice and be hosted by you, and you always cared for me as though I was your daughter. We had many conversations. I loved your mind, always with a sense of humor. You always loved to joke and make fun of everything. You were young at heart. Your last visit to Israel was after Gaia's transplant. I'm glad that it worked out for you to meet and get to know her. I am full of more things to say, but the words will not come. So many memories and experiences. I did not get to say goodbye to you. I heard your voice weekend and you were already tired. Rest comfortably in peace, my dear uncle. Toda Galit.
And as we see Galit's family there, it's my honor to invite Chassia to speak at this time. We'll ask you to unmute. It's okay, we all do it.
אחי היקר, בצער רב אנו נפרדים ממך היום. אני לא יכולה. תקחי, את לא יכולה. בשלוש שנים האחרונות סבלת מאוד. מההתחלה, מהמחלה הקשה הזו, ולא חשבתי שככה תסיים את חייך בגיל כה צעיר. לאורך כל השנים הקפדנו לשמור על קשר ותמיד דאגת למרות המרחק ושאלת מה שלום כולם ותמיד זכרת תאריכי יום הולדת של כולם והיית מתקשר לברך. צר לי שלא הייתי לצדך בימים האחרונים ולא הספקתי להיפרד ממך. יהיה שלום אחי יקר מהמשפחה בישראל.
תודה לך. המקום ינחם אתכם בתוך שאר אבלי ציון וירושלים. You find comfort. At this time, I'm inviting Gil to share some words. And Gil, would you unmute? Yeah, good, thank you.
So I'm a person of little words, so I prepared just a couple of things. We don't get to choose our parents. Growing up, there were many frustrating moments with my dad, whether it was making me go to swim practice or being on my case about my grades. I don't think it was really until after college that I really came to appreciate many of the core principles that I now follow that my dad instilled in me. Things like work hard, always help others, financial literacy, and of course, don't forget to laugh and just enjoy life. I think I'll always be grateful to my dad for providing me the opportunities I now have and to allow me to get to where I am today. I'm forever sad that we won't be able to share all the accomplishments to come, but I know he'll always be proud of who I've become and watching over me from above.
Amen. Lori, it's a lot for us to ask you to speak, and you don't have to, but if you would, we'd love it.
I want to. When I first met Ari, I wrote this poem in my art diary. So I wanted to read that, and you're gonna have to excuse me. This is 1983. And we got married in 1985. So this was at the very beginning. I'm gonna read it for Ari. For the very first time, I have found you, the one I have been searching for. I knew who you were the very first time I saw your face. And when you spoke, your words were memories of my past thoughts and my present thoughts. You were always in my dreams. The feeling of your existence ran through my veins, understood in my subconscious. One day I would turn the corner to find you there, waiting patiently, knowing I would one day come to you. It is nice to feel our excitement as electricity is made from love, quiet understanding and sensitivity, shared by two who trusted enough to wait until this moment, standing at the same point in time, We found each other, and now to hold on and walk down the road of life, wherever it takes us, as we are willing and caring. We love, and our love grows stronger, and we walk down the road together, you and I. So we did that. So I'm going to just share a few things from today. I always thought Ari was a gift to me from God. I knew Ari before I met him because I knew what I wanted in my mind. And when I met him for the first time and talked with him, I knew that God had answered me. All through our life together, I was happy because he was everything I could ever want or need. He was home to me, a safe place where I could be myself. Right now, I ask God why that gift was taken back. I don't understand now. Maybe I'll understand in the future. All I know now is that I was very fortunate to have his love because he gave everything of himself. When you love someone, there is never enough time. He was my heart. He was my teammate, my partner, my confidant, my best friend, my loving husband, whom I adored and fell in love with over and over again. Ari, thank you for loving me and allowing me to love you back. Thank you for being a part of my life. Thank you for our two wonderful children who are already trying to take good care of me. Thank you for being you. You have been loved. You have loved, and you will continue to be loved in our memories. May God bless you, my love. Okay.
There you go.
Ari,
I just wanted to thank everybody that is here today. It's a little strange because I can't see everybody.
here, hold on a second. Let me put everybody, I want you to see everybody.
Oh,
Well, it's not everybody because there are multiple pages, but there's some.
I don't think I can see them.
Oh, okay.
There, here.
I can. Okay, it's all right. Well, I just wanted to thank them for being here, and to know that I know that it's painful for me, but it's also painful for everybody else because he's touched so many people, and I know they loved him, and I appreciate that. So, thank you.
Lori, we know that Ari was definitely, he showed his love through these surprises. And, you know, I hope you find in your life that the feeling of his presence you feel as a surprise when you least expect it. You know, we're hearing the bird chirp in the background, and often in Kabbalah and Jewish mysticism, some of the rabbis believe that our loved ones in the other world make themselves heard through the chirping of birds and bird song, and sometimes through the barking of an animal. And so I wonder if Ari's even surprising us now. I know you told me how desperately he wanted to get back to Israel before he died, and I hope he surprises the family in Israel with appearances invisible, but there. And you sense those surprises. You told me maybe in the garden or as you're celebrating future simchas, we hope. We hope you feel that presence and you know that, and you can open up to the listening to what you know he's trying to tell you in those moments. We pray for his presence to continue to be with you and to be with all of us. I'd like to share some pictures of Ari as I sing the memorial prayer, the El Malei Rachamim. Pardon me one second. Electronics. El male rachamim, shochen ba'amromim, hamtze menucha nechona, tachat kanfei hashchina, b'ma'alot kedoshim, u'tehorim, kezohar harakia, mahazirim, b'nishmat Aryeh ben Menachem v'Rachel shehalach le'olamo beGan Eden tehei menuchato Ana Ba'al harachamim Astireu b'seter gnafecha le'olamim u'tzrohar b'tzrohar hachayim et nishmato Adonai hu nachlato v'yanuach b'shalom al mishkavo v'nomar Amen. Exalted, compassionate God, grant infinite rest in your sheltering presence among the holy and pure to the soul of Aryeh ben Menachem v'Rachel, Aryeh Greenberg, who has gone to his eternal home in you. Merciful One, we ask that our beloved find perfect peace in your eternal embrace, but that also may his soul be bound up in the bond of his precious ones in this life. May he rest in peace. And let us say, Amen. Shir ma'alot esayna el harim, me'ayin yavo ezri. Ezri me'im Adonai hosei shamayim va'aretz, hayitein lamot raglecha, hayanuhum shomrecha. Hine lo yanum v'lo yishan shomer Yisrael, Adonai shomrecha, Adonai tzilcha, hayad yeminecha. Yomam hashemesh lo yakeka, ve'yareach b'layla. Hu yishmorcha hamikora, ישמור את נפשך. אדוני ישמור צאתך ובואך, מעתה ועד עולם. We turn to Psalm 23.
מזמור לדוד, אדוני רואי, לא אחסר.
A psalm of David. The Lord is my shepherd, I lack nothing.
בנאות דשא ירביצני, על מי מנוחות ינהלני.
He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me to water in places of repose.
נפשי ישובב, ינחני במעגלי צדק למען שמו.
He renews my life. He guides me in right paths as befits his name.
גם כי אלך בגיא צלמוות, לא יראה רע, כי אתה עמדי, שבטך ומשענתך המה ינחמוני.
Though I walk through a valley of deepest darkness, I fear no harm, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me.
תערוך לפני שולחן נגד צורריי. דשנת בשמן, ראשי כוסי רוויה.
You spread a table for me in full view of my enemies. You anoint my head with oil. My drink is abundant.
אך טוב וחסד ירדפוני כל ימי חיי, ושבתי בבית אדוני לאורך ימים.
Only goodness and steadfast love shall pursue me for all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord for many long years.
Amen. I'm going to ask everyone for whom it is comfortable to do so to rise at this point for the mourner's Kaddish. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah, v'yalma divrach kirutei v'yamlich malchutei, v'chayechon u'vyomechon u'chaye dechol Beit Yisrael, ba'agala u'vizman kariv v'inru Amen. Yehe shmei Rabbah mevarach v'yalam u'lamel maya. Yiparach v'yishtabach v'yipa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh. V'yithadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shmei d'kudesha brichu. Le'ela min kol berchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechemata, da'amiran v'alma v'imru. Amen. Yehe shlama rabba min shemaya, v'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru. Amen. Oseh shalom b'mromav, hu ya'aseh shalom, aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru. Amen. As the prayer says, our connection to God, our connection to souls, love itself, goes beyond any words of gratitude, prayer, or consoling that have ever been uttered. We say those words, but there's also a time just to feel the presence and the depth of that love and connection. We wish a continuation of connection to the entire family as we vow in our hearts right now to support them for the journey ahead. One way to do that is starting tonight at 7:30 tonight. You can bring your memories to the Shiva service. So there's a link that's been sent out. You can email me. There's a link on is shown under evening service on the Beth Israel website. There is a code for it, which we can tell you to get in. But at 7:30 p.m., we'll be meeting for a Shiva service and time for people to express condolences and to share memories. So please bring your memories at this time. At this time, I wish so many of you, all of you, to go in peace, as a very few of us, given these times, will proceed shortly to burial with love and carrying your memories and hearts with us in that process. We look forward to seeing you tonight at 7:30. May we go in peace. Hamakom yenachem etchem b'toch sha'ar v'lei Tzion v'Yerushalayim. May you, God, comfort you, along with all of those who are grieving. Amen. We'll see you tonight.